Hello and welcome to Reanimated, ladies and gents. This is episode something very close to 500. I don't know which exactly. H.A. Conrad thinks it's not episode 499, but H.A. Conrad is here. Hello.
Hello, I'm
Hello.
back. We're back.
Yes, we had to miss a week, and I hope you enjoyed our moldery episode from the Tombs Fido, which we were able to find a couple weeks ago. Today, we are going to be digging into a new series, which is quite delightful, called Widow's Bay. And before we get to that, we have a little bit of news. First, in the news, HA, we've got a Kate. I think you're a big Kate Beckinsale fan. Is that true? Is that
I
accurate?
am. I like her a lot.
What
I
do you like about her? Is it her acting?
no, because she's kind of herself and everything. I don't know. There's just something about her that maybe it's just like I tie it to um our college years or post-college years. That might be it. I think maybe because she's
Do you
just
just like her outfits when she wears a lot of like latex?
yes, I definitely like that. And I mean, as you know, Underworld is one of my bad good movies that and interestingly, it's one that all my siblings all agree on in that if this is on or just happens to come on, we'll be like, yeah, I'll watch that.
Yeah. Okay,
It's
I can
so
get down with that.
pretty. It's so pretty, but it's so dumb,
Yeah.
like and it has such a great cast, like an insane cast. And yet it's what it is. So I don't know. It's just like maybe it's like the popcorn candy type movie genre that,
Hmm.
and I didn't get into a lot of I'm talking about the first Underworld. I don't know that because Bill Nighy is in that, and maybe I didn't really watch many. I think maybe I watched the second one, but yeah,
But
this is
Kate
one.
Beckinsale is a topic today
Oh yes,
because the announcement came in the last couple weeks anyway, since we've been out of the scene for a minute, that she's going to star in the next Romero film, Twilight of the Dead.
yeah,
This does feel like a big deal because a lot of his films did not. I mean, no, he had John Leguizamo in Land of the Dead and Dennis Hopper, so it's not like he hasn't attracted star power to his films before. And this one's obviously posthumous. But
right.
Kate Beckinsale feels like a different caliber.
It does, but it's also, you know, I do, and then this is not me being anti or anything like that, but I do think that there's a difference in how he would have sort of envisioned these things. And I also think he sometimes deliberately was casting people that weren't necessarily the best known. I mean, certainly he could have commanded star-studded casts later in his life and chose not to. So so I think that this is probably part of, he's gone and they're making this big legacy thing about it. So but I thought that Mia Jovovich was attached to this before, but um, maybe something happened. It looks like, yeah, because she took it over. I think it was supposed to be Mia Jovovich. So that's interesting
Hmm.
because I don't know that I would necessarily attach Kate Beckinsale with, you know, a zombie genre, though obviously she's done her fair share of supernatural things. So anyway, I am excited to see it. I think this is going to be, but there's also now new directors attached to this too,
I think it was a big reshuffle.
right? So that's also, and that kind of bums me out a little bit, because I do like Brad Anderson, and now it's the Paz brothers that are taking this over. What do you think about that?
I don't know what to think about it. I mean, whenever you see shuffling going on productions, it starts to make you a little
Wonder,
concerned.
yeah.
There's no release date for this either, so they have to, I think, still shoot it all, and there's a lot of things that could go wrong. I hope it goes right, and I hope that it's great. His legacy deserves that, you know?
It does, and that's why I'll admit to you, I'm a little sad about the Brad Anderson shuffle because his films, there's just something about them and his storytelling that I think adds a layer of depth that sometimes other people miss. And even from, I don't know if you've ever seen it, like two films that he did kind of early on, nothing to do obviously with the horror genre, but Happy Accidents, which was like this weird little indie time traveler film with Vincent D'Onofrio and Marissa Tomei. Did you ever see it?
No, but I like them.
It's like it's a small little indie film, but it was just kind of cool in the vision of the time traveler and just how it unfolded. So that was just like this quirky little thing. And then Next Stop Wonderland, similarly quirky in the storytelling, but obviously he's done a lot bigger things since then. So moving it over to the Paz brothers, who are, obviously more splashy and that kind of I was very interested to see what Brad Anderson would do with it, and part of it is that I think he's very good at getting to the depth of characters and that character driven, story driven film. And obviously, like he was very involved in Fringe, so that's like the sci-fi stuff that he's probably better known for. And anyway, I can't no use crying over spilled milk, but
Yeah.
I'm a little sad about this switch up. And not to say that they won't come up with something cool, they probably will, but I just think that he probably, to me, he has a little bit more of like the Romero-esque, like there's a deeper piece to it than just sort of the whole um I don't know, the big set pieces and things like that, right? So I don't know.
Yeah. Well, I guess time will tell. And so we'll just cross our fingers.
Yeah.
In the meantime, other things that are coming back to life include we've talked about it before, but there's a reboot or remake of Maniac Cop in the works. Article from Bloody Disgusting and Deadline talks about the director, I believe, Nicholas Winding Refn. Sounds like they're going to be shooting in January of 2027. And it's got a Mubby is behind it, whoever Mubby is.
I think is it Mubi?
Whatever you say, lady. I don't know. But they are Mubi and Goodfellas are publishing it, I believe, or
Hmm.
distributing it, bankrolling it. And so I guess we can keep an eye out for updates on that. I mean, there have been a couple of stories about this project, so that makes me think it's serious deal. They're actually going for it. Sounds like it's fully funded. I'm not sure if we have any information about the cast. This
Not
article
yet.
talks about a few different projects.
So I suspect that we'll get, the next sort of teaser will probably be with whatever the cast is of this. So we shall.
I mean, it's kind of an interesting time to tackle that sort of storytelling. Interesting.
Yeah, for sure, for sure.
So I'm kind of excited for it, assuming that they go, give it the Eric Kripke treatment is what I would kind of hope for.
Yeah.
And then final news is really not much of a news. It's more of an opinion piece from Collider, and they're wading into the argument that the Walking Dead franchise is due for a significant reset. I think that we can all see that it's either going to die now or in the next year, or it will be reset somehow and relaunched with new life. I'm not. I mean, I feel like it's even money, although
Yeah.
it's a valuable property, and so the likelihood is. I mean, we know they were shopping it around AMC. We'll see. We'll see what happens. But like, Daryl Dixon is going to have its last season this year. We haven't heard that City of the Dead is done, but
No, and they
it might as
just
well be.
yeah, except that they're like they have a premiere date for the season 3, so
I
but
mean, yeah, we know that they're doing another season, but it just feels like,
right, it feels like it's kind of petering out, yeah, for sure.
well, yeah, and maybe that's just my interpretation of the story, that it feels like nobody's really trying that hard.
Yeah, agree.
It doesn't feel like a project that anybody's that excited about, especially Negan. He seems like he's the least excited to be on that show.
Yeah.
I mean, the character of Negan, never mind Jeffrey Dean Morgan.
Right.
So one of the things that's interesting in this Collider piece is they're like, hey, you know what would be cool is if The Walking Dead was given the Robert Kreger treatment of that he's giving to Resident Evil.
Hmm.
meaning like, hey, we don't need all these like it's like the Jedi, it's like the Skywalker problem with Star Wars. We don't need all these stories about the same dang people, right? Like they've actually done some of the characters on The Walking Dead a disservice, like Daryl Dixon and Carol and Negan and Maggie, by spending more time with them and delivering like kind of half-baked plots. Instead, find some new characters, a la Tales of the Walking Dead, which had wins and losses, but
Right.
find some new characters and tell stories in the universe about new people, and it could really breathe some life into it. And obviously Robert Cregger's just doing that with Resident Evil, with his story
Right.
of just a random dude in Raccoon City.
Right. And I think, yeah, I think that if you turned it on its head like that, it could certainly work. So, curious to see what happens with this. I cannot believe that they would just let this go. It's made way too much money, and there is so much in terms of you know, what they could potentially do with it, in terms of spin-offs and other things. But what I think would be really important, though, is to make sure that whatever characters you are sort of presenting have a hook or have that kind of stickiness that we have seen with the main cast of The Walking Dead. Because I actually think that that's sometimes even some of it was the ensemble, though, and some of it was like, you know, sure, it's great having these spin-offs with like Daryl and Carol and Maggie and Negan, but I will say, I think, it feels like what these have weakened, like sort of how the storylines go. They're not as interesting as it was having the group as a collective, in my opinion. Um, so, although I will say, I think that the Rick and Michonne little spinoff was successful mainly because everybody wanted to know what happened there, right? So that was kind of fun.
Yeah, and it was
But
limited.
and limited. And I think maybe that's the answer is that I think part of the issue is that they're trying to sort of spin out these stories and playing them out a little bit too long, and then they're running out of that like kind of they're not sort of operating in that like kind of tight storytelling, and we've got to like get to this point, and it makes it there's a lot of filler and journeys that maybe don't need to be witnessed. But that's that's just one person's opinion.
No,
So,
I mean I agree. It feels like they've just gone on too long. It's the Lost thing where
yeah.
the thing is with the World Beyond, they in theory, I think it was planned to be a two-season story, but it was still bad.
Yes, it was, and it was
So
just
it's not
again a
like
lot of filler.
it's not like a silver bullet, because when you decide that your gimmick is going to be these two sisters who are Wonder Twin powers of genius to get when they're together, but pretty dumb separately.
Yep.
That's not that's not good story. I mean, maybe it would have been good storytelling, but it felt pretty stupid at the time. That
I think one thing that could potentially be is like you pick a character that everybody just became obsessed with, like Heath, and just say like, let's do a story about him. Or even honestly, I mean, like that's something people are totally obsessed with. Like if they pick something like that and just figured out a little, bottle season or something about Heath, and even better, made it that he actually did survive. That would be great. I think you could probably do something like that, and that plays off of, but you'd have to make it interesting enough, right? Like, so that's the issue that they often run into. It's like, um, it's not a compelling enough story. And they're just sort of like, oh, Walking Dead, Daryl, everybody will love it without really, you know, and same thing with the Dead City.
yeah,
Um, all signs should point to success, but it feels like they're getting almost in the way of themselves. In either trying to fit in too much or trying to take a kernel of a story and make it like spread it out way too long. So anyway, I
agreed.
digress. But you know what is tight and interesting and good storytelling? Widow's Bay, which we're about to talk about next.
Yeah, this is an interesting project. The thing that made me watch this was when I decided to watch the trailers. I wasn't, yeah, I like Matthew Rhys. Is that the dude's name? Yes,
Yes,
Matthew Rhys.
he is honestly one of my favorite actors.
He's great. Is he American or is he a
No, he's
Welsh guy?
Welsh.
Yeah,
He's
so
Welsh.
I've never seen him do his actual normal accent. I don't watch for interviews with him, but I should.
Yeah, it's a little jarring actually
I'll
the way he
bet.
does it.
I'll bet. So we love him from the Russians, obviously, right?
The
AJ,
Americans.
I'm using your terminology.
I
Uh,
know. Look at how nice you are in remembering that. Yes. I only call it the Russians. It's true.
but
So
like I don't know that I've seen a lot. He was in a reboot of Matlock, which was pretty weird. But it was good enough. But it was like dark, dark
oh,
Matlock.
not Matlock.
Wasn't that Matlock?
No, no, no. It was the other one. Oh
The
gosh.
other one. I don't remember the name of
The other procedural thing where Perry Mason.
Perry Mason. Yeah, sorry. But like, yeah, I thought that was like a dry courtroom show, and then
Oh
in
no,
this,
they made it really dark.
it was pretty dark. Perry Mason. Thank you. That's right. So I'd seen him in a few things. I like them enough to watch the trailer at least for Widow's Bay, not knowing really anything about it. But then as soon as I saw these trailers, there's three of them it's on Apple Plus. I was just like immediately roped in. And
Yep.
then when you watch the episodes and you see how they've built these trailers, it does the thing that the show does, which is it blends comedy and horror
Yep.
in a way that it feels very fresh and new to me. But it also just it like really leans on that comic timing
Oh,
that Tom Loftis, the character Matthew Rhys is playing, he's the straight guy kind of going through this insane stuff on this island, and he is delivering a lot of these deadpan lines.
yeah, I know this sounds like wild, but maybe just because it's in New England, it's kind of a blend of like Newhart and Castle Rock and like a variety of different things that are just like it shouldn't really work. And then you feel like you feel incredibly guilty about like laughing sometimes, but it's like it's really cleverly done, and he is just such an incredible actor. The writing is really good. The editing is really good. The directing, everything about this, I'm all on board for. So,
And a
I
pretty good cast in addition to Matthew Rhys,
oh yeah,
too. Like Stephen Root as Wick is a real
so
presence on
good.
the show. Kate O'Flynn, who I don't know that I was familiar with before this, is playing Patricia, who is Tom's assistant. And
Did you ever see the it's what is it called? The Widow Jane something. My Lady Jane. I think it was like a one season. Um, it was not a very long-lived show, and she was so good in it. So I remembered her from that, and I was like, "Oh, this is awesome," because she has some incredible timing
so she's a
too.
Brit too.
Yeah.
Oh
Yep.
man, they're doing the accents very well. Although, of course, they're not doing regional accents. It's interesting that this is an island off the coast of New England,
Yeah, but they're
and
definitely not doing that.
some of
No.
the background actors who have lines but mostly are not main characters have very thick
Hmm.
accents. But then Tom and Patricia and Wick and the cop, the policeman, and the hotel guy and the priest, none of them do. And they seem to be more like the central characters. But it's
Right.
interesting that you'll hear background actors be like, come in with a thick, broad Massachusetts sort of accent, and I mean,
Yeah, it's
it's not
actually
something you run into that in Boston too, or in
yeah.
Massachusetts,
It's
but
a
it's
little bit Jaws-esque, honestly, because
mhm.
like
Oh,
in
there's a
that
lot of Jaws in this. I figured you would love that.
I do love it, and I maybe that's why I'm adoring it so much. But it's definitely they have that local flavor, but with a lot of the like more background and secondary characters.
But
But
that also
definitely,
speaks to like the central one of the central themes, which is that Tom, who is the mayor of this community,
mhm.
is also an outsider here
Yep.
and kind of looks down at the community that he is trying to lead into a brighter future. And so
It's very much the vibe that you get in New England tourist towns because you have a lot of people and myself included whose families moved to those communities. This actually happened during COVID, and I know a few like friends of ours that basically moved to Vermont from Brooklyn and were like, this will be so great, and have gotten a lot of calls and conversations trying to understand the I don't know how to put it. There is a bit of, the tourist communities there understand that that's, driving it's the driver of the economy in a lot of cases in a lot of towns, but there is also resentment because there is a bit of condescension from, city folk like myself.
Hmm.
And if you have not grown up in that community, like really, really been grown up and have roots in that community, it's very hard to understand how some of that works. And there's a lot of judgment. So there are a lot of things going on in this town and in this writing that just speak to me and I recognize.
Yeah.
So, and things that Tom Loftis is saying that I'm like, oh, yes, I so understand why you're saying that, but I also understand why the townsfolk are reacting in this way. It's really well done. It's so clever, and I am enjoying the heck out of this show for sure.
So I would say for anybody who hasn't seen it, well, you shouldn't listen to the rest of this podcast because we're going to
Absolutely
spoil the
not.
hell out of it, is what
Yeah,
we
and you
do.
should watch this without being spoiled. So let me
And
just say that.
and if you're not sure about it, go watch those trailers because they are really well done. There's three of them, and each one I think speaks to different elements of the story, but they blend in that stuff I'm talking about. This show is funny. It's like laugh out loud funny, and it has some pretty good scares in it, and so it works on a couple levels. It appears to be a passion project. The showrunner, I believe, is Katie Dippold, and then Murai has directed the first two episodes at least. I don't know if they've directed more than that. Um, so in the first episode, it's called Welcome to Widow's Bay, and this is where we meet Tom and some of the other characters of the town. And a lot of the plot is around Tom's trying to get a travel writer from the New York Times to come and
Yeah.
review write a write up about Widow's Bay, this little island off the coast of
Hmm.
wherever.
And he makes a lot of comments, and there are a lot of there's definitely a lot of Jaws, Martha's Vineyard vibes going on, because he in Nantucket, Martha's Vineyard, he keeps like throwing out names of different communities that, I can't believe we aren't as big as these places. And there is, there is a little bit of ambivalence in the community because I think that they both would like this, but also like keeping to themselves or like kind of don't want this their town sort of
There,
exposed.
yeah,
But
the dichotomy here is like the people who are true Widow's Bayers, they
Mhm.
are mostly focused on sure like fishing, daily life, but also just like survival in a way.
Yes.
Whereas he wants to grow and become more and
Yeah.
has this like futurist, approach to what he wants to do. But that doesn't jive with,
Right.
especially with Wick, who is, I think, the former mayor because of some stuff that they say to each other. But
There's also not just survival and survival, but like survival generally, but then there's also the underbelly of what is actually going on. And there is so many different sort of um one of the things that is really great is that there's different layers of the story happening and different levels of awareness within the community. So that is kind of cool. And there's
yeah.
little things that they just kind of lay out for you that pop up later. So there will be like an offhand comment and you'll see it pop up later. So it's also really paying attention to a lot of those details and tying the story together in a multitude of ways, which is really like cool to watch. So Hiro Murai, he did Station 11, didn't he? Maybe am I misremembering that? And I think he did. And I was feeling like there was a lot of kind of in the way some things were unfolding, and I felt like there were some similarities for sure, but obviously a completely different genre. But I think it excels at making you care about these characters and also being able to see the different viewpoints. So it's a incredibly complex and layered story, even though this is a dark comedy. So you could take it just as it at its face, but it goes a lot deeper, which makes it more interesting.
Hero has did do two episodes of Station 11,
Hmm.
and The Bear has done The Bear. He was an executive producer.
Ah, there you go.
Um, and Barry, which is a very well directed Barry, and has directed a bunch of music videos. He
Right.
also directed and executive produced Atlanta,
Oh yeah,
and
that was
then
like his big
won a
thing. Yeah.
Grammy for direction on This Is America by Childish Gambino. So a very interesting sort of I don't know, directorial heritage, I would say.
Yeah.
Um,
Um,
so
yeah.
the action begins with these scenes of this boat out on the water,
Yeah, and
and it's
immediately it feels Jaws. Immediately.
yeah, for sure. And you've got, but like the what's going on here is a guy just kind of complaining to the harbor master by radio. This guy Shep, they clearly they know each other pretty well, and talking about how his relationship was falling apart. But then, then the supernatural events start to happen quite quickly. We actually cut away from Shep without seeing what happens to him, but power's going out, birds are freaking out. There's a fog on the radar. And then there's also an earthquake back on land that wakes up Tom. And we also kind of get introduced a little bit to his son, Evan. Is that his name?
I think so.
Um, and so things are weird. Earthquakes in the Northeast, while they happen, it's pretty noteworthy when they do. And so people
Mm.
definitely sit up and take notice. But in this case, it's like a supernatural, supernatural earthquake, and paired with this fog and power stuff that's going on, it sets up the fact that like something isn't quite right here. And Wick definitely jumps on this and says this is the island waking up, and that's kind of his thesis for the first couple episodes.
And I also I just want to go back to the whole the way the storytelling is just both with when we're out on the water and when we go back in and we kind of get introduced to Mayor Loftis. There is a very like it's a very like in terms of you're observing and you as the audience have pieces of the puzzle that he does not yet. So there's also it really creates that tension and builds that tension because the audience has, I mean, we don't know everything. We know that certain things are happening, and it makes it even more satisfying as you're sort of like, as they're kind of feeding you little pieces of the puzzle through various characters. So I was just like, even from the get-go of this episode, I was like, oh, hell yeah. It's so good.
Yeah.
So and we definitely see just a lot of the character building and we learn so much even in the little interactions. And again, they don't what I really love about what how this show works is that it's not spoon feeding you everything. You're meant to remember these things and like and have to like did you rewatch this episode, Stuart? Because I had to because I was like, oh, I feel like I remember this.
Yeah, I've
And
watched them
then
both a couple times that we're talking
like they're
about.
really detailed and interesting and worth a second watch. So anyway,
And there are a lot of there's a lot of crumbs
yeah.
being dropped in these first
Yep.
couple. Like there's a whole conversation about the hospital, which is
Yep.
a great element. Like also
Uh-huh.
this is introduced by Dale Dickey Rosemary, who is an employee in the mayor's office. And you recognize this woman if you see her. And like the interactions between Tom and her are first of all hilarious because
Mhm.
she can't stop gossiping, even
Yep.
though he's just like, don't gossip to me. Just tell me if you've heard from this guy about the power outage. But she's like, oh, you wouldn't hear any gossip from me. But let's just say, there's no age limit on syphilis and things like that. It's like she
Oh,
can't stop. But it's
I know.
amazing. It's amazing writing and delivery. And it kind of introduces this thing that Matthew Rhys has to keep doing, which is reacting
Yep.
like with incredulity or with like concerned perplexity when he's seeing all these things and hearing these things that to us as the audience we're like this is insane, this is
Yep.
batshit, like what's happening, like, and he picks up a calendar in his office and it's a wolves calendar but every picture is of a car crash,
Yep.
like and then he just has to like raise an eyebrow and this is all happening while a conversation is happening off screen or whatever, and as the audience we're just like along for this ride of everything here is a bit off.
Yeah, and what is actually really satisfying about it is that especially as we sort of we're introduced to this character and we're seeing as he is interacting in this community, we get to see a little bit of what his job is and his interactions, just hearing these stories and his reaction is what generally a normal person's reaction would be is that, oh gosh, you're just telling me this like insane stuff.
Yeah.
But as the story continues, his realization or having to accept that some of these things are real, and that is so satisfying when it eventually happens. And he still is fighting with it because it's like not anything. These are things that not no normal person would be able to sort of process immediately, but he like eventually gets there. But it's a really great dynamic and really fun. So yeah, but her gossiping is like kind of amazing, and
So
her bre
yeah.
oh, her bread the breadcrumbs that she drops are pretty solid.
Yeah, like she says, it's okay to drive past the hospital.
Right.
And so you're like,
Hmm.
wait, what?
Yep.
Because they're talking about where not to take this reporter at some point
Right.
in the episode. And like a lot of these characters that they've or these actors that they've cast have kind of interesting looks to them that feel like it's not going to take a ton of effort to make them scary.
Right.
And
Like
so
they're
I
almost on that edge of
yeah,
like
yeah.
eccentric, but mm,
Like even Patricia, who is like a nice lady who seems to be his ally in the office, who he confides in and trusts to like help him do things, and seems to be at work at all hours.
hmm
She also she I mean she talks about the whole boogeyman story, which is amazing,
yep.
but also yeah, there's something about her that where she could be an axe murderer. Wouldn't take much.
I feel like almost every single character, like
That's the thing.
Rosemary's got a bit of a, it's like that New England, like she has lived a life and you
Hmm.
get that. And um you're like, okay. And her sort of matter of fact um telling storytelling, but also support in a way, like I think she's trying to support or help people, but you could also see her totally going, nuts
It's
at some point.
everybody's a suspect. It's perfect.
Right, right.
And so he's trying to get the power back on, and he's working really hard to like modernize his town. And you can kind of feel for Tom in this part of the story where he's like, "Look, I said we need to go after this funding to help our electrical grid, and I'm fighting morons at every level or every turn." It feels like he's really put upon this poor mayor, poor Tom.
Hmm.
But what's happened also is because there's fog coming in, we're hearing that people want to close down the town. They want to stop all operations. This guy Wick wants to set off a siren, and this is all on the day when the New York Times reporter is coming. So like he's running around this whole episode trying to like stave off what he sees as disaster.
Right,
But really, I mean, even though the siren does go off and the fog does come in and the ferry comes like an hour earlier, however early it comes, the reporter gets there and then the reporter has a really good experience, it feels like. So none
right.
of these like,
Except,
earth-shattering things.
but some of the best things with the reporters when, they're showing Rosemary's showing him the wall of the
No,
history.
that's Jerry. Yeah,
Oh,
but
sorry,
yeah,
Jerry.
that museum
Um,
is
Yeah,
it's
it is
amazing.
so it's so amazing, and even Mayor Loftus's Matthew Reese's trying to explain different things to the reporter, but what's so great about it is that the reporter is like pretty nonchalant, but also pointing out some things. Like there's this whole it was so good.
So was there
Um
cannibalism?
yeah,
No,
no.
no. It took 4 days, but yeah.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah,
The
no, it's
witch
so good.
trials also, the part where Jerry's like, "Oh yeah, I was about to tell him about the witch trials." And they
Yeah.
have like a blood-stained pilgrim outfit
Right.
in front of this poster. And she's like, "It's a great source of pride for the
Right. And she's
community.
like caught him, burned him.
We found him, we burned
I
him."
know.
Oh
It's
God.
really I laughed so hard of that at that line. And then when Mayor Loftus hears he's like, wait, wait,
Wait,
wait.
whoa,
Like
whoa, 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 yeah.
it's so
How about we come over here and talk about like, oh, those wacky coastal towns and their crazy superstitions. Um, so yeah, like that's one of the other theses for this show is he's like, Patricia, we can't, and he says this line later in the episode. He's like, we wasted a lot of time today. We can't let the fear, take over. Because obviously a lot of people in the town are concerned, but really by this point in the story, he's the most scared person on the cast as far as we
yeah.
can tell.
Yeah,
And
definitely.
and that's an interesting element of this show is I assume the more he sees, the more freaked out he's getting, and justifiably so. But he's still like, so far, at least in the show that we've seen, he's like stubbornly sticking to his guns in a way that
Yeah.
maybe is pretty silly.
And then and he's got like what's kind of there's also like the whole vibe that he has like within the staff of his office that they're all like quirky and he kind of has to be the one to get everybody to do the things that he needs them to do, but they're all kind of doing their own weird little character driven things, despite the fact that they are trying to be supportive. And so I kind of enjoy that dynamic.
Yeah.
And then, and I especially really like his interactions with every single one of them is so great. Um, but
Yeah,
I,
there's nobody. There doesn't feel like there's any wasted time on this show.
no,
Every
no,
piece of dialogue that Matthew Rhys has is in either informing like a future horrific thing that's going to happen, or developing, like you said, these quirky relationships with all the people he works with, like his 82-year-old secretary who goes
right,
home to take a nap at 11 o'clock in the morning. It's all fantastic. Another piece of this is that he has to persuade the main restaurant in town to not close for the day because of fog.
right.
Because he's like, no, I have to bring the reporter
Yeah.
there. Um,
And I
yeah,
also really love, like the Patricia dynamic with him is so good. And I'm definitely getting like some of how this show is styled, like it's almost like I it's supposed to be modern day-ish, I think. But there's like almost a timeless quality to it, but you
yeah.
very much feel like they are homaging the heck out of all these movies. Jaws is the one I've mentioned. Like there's definitely there's a 70s thing going on, 70s horror thing in my opinion, because I like really feel um, I I I really feel like Patricia's got like a shining Shelley Duvall
She has a Shelley Duvall look.
vibe.
Yeah.
Like I think they've deliberately styled her in that way, like even like with her hair and things like that. And you see these little things, and it's so like a very so enjoyable to see. And what I'm really hoping as this story kind of unfolds is that there's some kind of a feature with each of the people that we've been like introduced to.
It feels like that's what they're setting up, but
Right.
yeah, we'll have
I
to
could be
see.
wrong and maybe they're just supporting cast and that's how it's going to go, but like I hope that that's what it is and that that's what they're just setting the stage for because if that's what I think it is, it's going to be very awesome. So we'll see. But it could just be, Loftus being the sort of main person kind of solving all of it. I don't know. We'll see.
I think it's gonna, obviously it's like Wick and Loftus are diametrically opposed at the beginning of
Yes,
the
that's
show,
going to be a thing,
but it
obviously.
does feel like they're gonna have to work together
Yeah,
to solve issues.
right.
And it might be that Wick and Loftus are the only two people who don't go crazy, or maybe who knows.
Maybe.
So the main dramatic element that happens during this episode is when this guy Shep, who'd gone missing at the beginning of the episode, shows up, and then Loftus is talking, like sitting by his bedside in the hospital, looking at his chart, like, "Oh, you weren't drunk? Oh, this doesn't make any sense." And so he's starting to be like, "Oh dear, what did happen to Shep?" And then Shep, he's already gotten this whole download from Wick about how like the steps, the phases of the island waking
Yep.
up, and phase two was, I think, erectile dysfunction. This is the
Yeah.
thing, like
So
it's
funny.
and but one of the phases was like eyes go milky white, right?
Mhm.
And then you see that Shep has that affliction, and the doctor had just gotten done telling all the townsfolk like he's okay, he's not in bad shape. We've given him a soporific, or we've anesthetized him, but he's just going to sleep and rest because he had a bad fall. But then Shep wakes up, tries to throttle Loftus, and then he
Right.
dies. Like so,
But
and you
let's
can
also,
see that Matthew Rhys, his performance, he's very affected by this.
yeah. And there's, I think maybe I'm jumping into the second episode, but I think it was in this episode where he looks at the chart and it's like Shep's supposed to be 38 years old.
That's right. That's
And
right. I was
there's
just looking at
also
the blood alcohol content, but I remember that it was 38. Yeah, that was
And there was
crazy.
also an interaction between him and Patricia where he makes some comment that she's like a woman in her 40s and she kind of freaks out a little bit. And so that's making me think that there's like something happening with like the denizens of the town
And
because
she also says that her what birth age or her spiritual age is 28.
yeah, but she looked and that like so anyway, I feel like that's gonna come back maybe. But the fact that he was like, oh, Shep's 38 and Shep looks like definitely not 38. He
Shep
looks
is like in his
grizzled
70s.
and
Yeah.
like in his 70s and then even Matthew Reese's reaction, or sorry, Loftus's reaction when Shep totally it's more it's like, oh, eyes are milky white and now I'm gonna try to kill you.
Yeah.
And like it's just even after it he's shocked, but he's also still it feels like he's still in
No.
denial.
He's well at this point he's gone because he goes back to his office and is like staring at his computer and Patricia has to be like, "Hey, you're supposed to go have dinner with the reporter." And
Right.
he's like, "Oh, he's too busy freaking out." And
Mm,
then he's at dinner with the reporter, completely, unable to pay attention,
yep.
even when the reporter's like, "Yeah, I'm going to write a good write-up for your town." I think it's a lot
Yeah.
like Martha's Vineyard
But at this point he's too worried that everyone's gonna die
because
because
now he's seeing the fog roll in and he's
right.
like, "Oh no, it's everybody's gonna." Yeah. And so he has like a very public breakdown. And the thing is, what I don't get here is so the townspeople are all these they're all they believe in the superstition. They are all quite leery of
Mm,
supernatural. But when he shows that he's freaked out about it, none of them seem to be concerned at all.
nope.
Maybe it's just because Wick isn't there and Wick is the main
Yeah,
Cassandra, right?
protagonist. Yeah. Yep.
Either way, so he has this very public, like falling down, screaming. The reporter is like, "Oh, I get it. You want it to be more like Salem than Nantucket."
Right, right. But he also kind of is teasing him because he's like, you don't need to do that. This is just like a great town, like it's kind of funny.
I feel like nobody really treats this very public mental breakdown with this severity that it
I
requires
know.
or it deserves. Like, dude, we should get you to a therapist. Like, you need help.
Right.
They just let him drink a whiskey and then Wayne, the owner manager of the restaurant, is like, you can lock up. There's also this just amazing uh relationship or nemesis situation with Kathy, who's a server at this restaurant, and Loftus.
Yeah.
Anytime he's talking to anybody at this restaurant, he's like, "And no Kathy. Make sure Kathy doesn't come anywhere. She's not at my
Yeah, like
table.
make
She's
sure
not
she
doing anything."
doesn't serve us. Yeah.
And she gives him a nice like scare at the end of the episode or at the end of their yeah, at the end of that episode. And then the final shot we get is the camera pans down through the floor and there's an electric chair in like the sub basement. Okay. Spooky, weird. Um, but like what is honestly it's just a fun episode. Like you're left with a freak out, but also with some
Mhm.
laughter because Kathy is just giving him a bill for stuff that he didn't order and he's like
Right.
incredulous about it.
Right.
It's fun times. It's good stuff.
And it really does set up the dynamic between Loftus and Wick. And it really to me it just sets the table so successfully. And so and
Okay. Episode 2 is
okay.
entitled Lodging, also directed, as I said, by Hiro Murai. And then this one was written by Kelly Galuska. And this has some real Shining feel to it
Oh,
because it's
yes, it does. Hmm.
a haunted hotel episode. Um, and it begins with, oh, I think, do you remember what the first thing that happens is in the episode? I remember like the nailing of the thing to the door, but I don't think that was the first thing that happened. Or is it?
No, no, no.
Oh, it's the church bell.
It's
It's the
is it?
church bell starts ringing. Yeah, that happens. That's the cold open. So
Okay.
it's just a shot, like, and I don't think there might be a little bit of music underneath it, or like a just like an
Mm,
unsettling sort of tone. But the bell's ringing. It's the middle of the night, and the camera's kind of like going down, and then it just cuts to the credits, and you're like, "What?" But then it becomes clear that this is out of the ordinary. This shouldn't have happened,
right.
based on conversations that Loftus has with the priest the next day, and
Yep.
then we get a few scenes of the priest like figuring out why the church bell was ringing in the middle of the night. Um, and obviously there's more to tell there. Like that's like the C plot or the B plot of this episode, but
Right.
he goes digging into his archives and it's like if the bell should ever ring, now you have to take these following steps. And I'm so sorry for what's about to happen next. It's
Oof.
crazy.
Um,
This town is
but
just
but
bonkers.
for this one, it's all about the fact that yeah, so there's like 10 different plots going on. But the main sort of thread for this one is that because they got the great review in the New York Times, they're anticipating that there's going to be a lot of tourists coming into town. And so there's all these sort of things that Mayor Loftis wants to happen so that it's like a welcoming place. And this was the part that I was like, oh, this is like so funny. But like he's really Tom is like focused on there's like a cafe where there's like an espresso machine now or something. It's like and he's so like over the top about it. And that feels like definitely like something that would happen.
Yeah,
Um,
he's like twisted the arm of the cafe operator to buy and install this espresso machine. And he's like, "Oh, this is so good. This is great. Tourists are gonna love it." And the guy's like, "Yeah, it took a while to figure out how to use it. Also, nobody's ordering it any
right.
espresso." Yeah,
And
it's
then
funny.
there's, and then obviously the big linchpin of this episode is about the inn and the fact that you know, this is like they're gonna need to have people stay, but Wick is like incredibly worked up because he's like, "Oh, you're putting people in danger," and he's like really like upset about it that they're opening the inn to guests, which is, if you think about it, crazy, right? Because you would imagine that this inn has been operating.
Like, where did the reporter stay when
Right.
he came to town?
Yeah. So anyway, there's a pretty big confrontation about it.
Yeah, well, Wick is also drunk, but
Yeah,
he's trying to nail the door shut, and there's a big
yeah,
crowd. Well, big, I guess, for Widow's Bay, and Tom has to try to intercede. And the cops come and they try to take him away, or Wick away, and he makes the mistake of calling Wick a dumb hick. Um, which frankly, like, Wick has been calling him a coward and a softy or whatever throughout his
yeah.
tirade, and so. Well, it does underscore the fact that he feels like he's better than the people that he's actually
Yeah, I mean, he
governing.
calls he calls Wick like a dumb hick. And this immediate thing is like, oh, you just really messed up.
Hmm.
You stepped over the line. You told us what you really think of us. And, while they are sort of these bystanders, you can feel the tide turn. And I think they always, I think maybe there's a piece of them that's like, oh, is Wick really crazy? Or is he like, I mean, he's known in the town. Um, but at that point you just feel it like the faces, the people that are watching this, the crowd that's watching, and he knows he screwed up too. Loftus totally knows he screwed up,
Yeah.
and then feels, and this is why I think this whole thing works, but basically Wick challenges him to sleep in the inn, and he
Well,
kind
it's
of,
the townies who
right.
are challenging him when he goes to pick up dinner for his
Well, no, I mean this like
son.
Wick
But
kind of like was like, "Oh, why don't you sleep?" or said something like that, and like then they kind of take up that mantle,
okay.
because it's like so that's it's like watching the thread of that happen, which isn't just about you know the mayor in general, but it's because he called Wick a dumb hick, and so the townies are the locals are like, "Oh, nope, we're gonna like." See this little challenge through, I guess, is kind of how I viewed it.
But then even that's a funny scene because all of them, all the people in the restaurant apparently have their own story that they want Tom to have to either face or, you know, yeah, basically survive.
There are a lot of stories related to this sin, so many that it would give anybody pause. And I think it's kind of funny how they present this because I also think that Tom's reaction to it is, oh, this is just one of those urban legends and everything's kind of building upon themselves, so he can kind of brush it aside. I will also say, so I watched this with my significant other who does not like these things and these kinds of things, and I kind of had an inkling of where this was going. At least that there would be some, because it felt like there was like a lot of Stephen King-esque things, and I didn't expect what eventually happened, but I probably should have. And I did say we should turn this off, or you shouldn't watch any more of this.
At which point,
Um, Probably just before the really big reveal, in the end, and I didn't know exactly what would happen. I actually was thinking more, like Shining in like the bathtub scary woman in the shower thing. Like
hmm
I thought that would be like there'd be some kind of mirror play where you see something and it's not what you think it
What do
is.
you think is the one thing that happened in the hotel that would freak you out the most?
Um, the one thing that happened. I mean,
Because
honestly,
there were a few things that were happening,
there were,
hauntings.
yes, there were a few things. The big thing is more, it wasn't about what happened. I mean, we're going to spoil it, obviously, but the clown reveal thing, it wasn't so much that as the being in the crawl space and being unable to get out. That freaked me out a lot.
Yeah, and a great performance by Matthew Rhys where he's
Yes.
freaking out. He's like, "Don't come in! I'm coming out! No, don't!" Yeah, and
Yeah.
then yeah,
But even
that
the
was pretty freaky.
lead up to that with him playing the game.
For me, it was
Um,
the TV. The
oh
whatever's
yeah,
going
that
on with
was
that
freaky.
TV was at first you're like, oh, this is weird. Like he turns on this old cathode
Mm,
ray tube TV, and there's immediately like a widow Welcome to Widow's Bay
yep.
like tourism video, but then it's not quite right. Like the guy
Nope.
walks down the beach and around the corner of the woods, and then it just stays like that.
Right.
And Matthew Rhys does another one of his little eyebrow raises,
Yep.
and then when he looks at the TV again later
Oh, yeah.
there's like a weird Slender Man sort of thing going on, and
Slender Man, it's the ring.
the
It's
old
like,
the old guy is
yeah.
looking down and saying, "Come with me" or something,
Oh
and you're
yeah,
just
that
like,
was freaky. That was definitely
and
freaky.
by then, his curtains have already been opening and closing on their own, and he's hearing things in the air conditioning or the vents, and you're already kind of on guard at this point. But
Yeah.
again, this show takes opportunities to like raise and lower the mood, like even though
Right.
you're in a haunted hotel, he's getting yelled at by the innkeeper played by Neil Casey,
Yeah.
Kurt, to like sign the honor bar ledger,
Yeah, who's
uh,
watching him from a camera, but Kurt won't even stay in the inn. Like,
and refuses to even walk into the captain's suite, which is
right,
where
right. Yeah.
Loftis has to stay for this
Yeah.
dare.
Mm.
Yeah, but I thought there's a lot of little things happening in the hotel that are offsetting or off-putting rather. But then like even the climax or the crescendo, like when you meet this new character, William, um, who is played by Tim Baltz.
Oh yeah, and he's way too neutrally ordinary for him to remain neutrally ordinary. And
Yeah.
there's some comfort in how like benign or how sort of um normal he is in the beginning. And I was like, oh, this is not going to end well.
But it's actually
Like,
really like I think they have a great time together.
oh,
Like
they do,
this
but
if
that's
for
what I'm
a
saying. Like, this is not going to turn out well. Like, absolutely not.
Yeah, absolutely not. I mean,
Um,
the guy is dressed like he's from the 50s, and they had said in the restaurant, "Oh yeah," and then there was the killer clown from
right,
1951, and you're like, "Oh," and Loftus doesn't is like apparently too freaked out to realize that like people don't dress like this in 2020s,
right, right.
But he's a
And but
disarmingly friendly guy, and you're just like, "Okay, yeah, I will go have a drink with you and play this
he,
horrifying board game."
right, he is, except he's also like he knows a little bit too much. Like he's talking about the espresso machine
He knows
and
like
he
current
knows the
events.
things.
Yeah.
Yeah, and that makes it even a little creepier because you very much feel like he is setting up Tom or not in a good way. I will also just an aside about the board games when he's going through the board games like the card game Run.
Yeah.
Which was like, there was some kind of cool things about that too. So that was kind of funny. But you also get a lot of reveals in this conversation, um, like with William. And one of them is like, he admits that when he ran for the mayor, he ran uncontested. So he also feels a little bit like a fraud.
hmm
And he, talks a lot about the locals and their superstitions. And then there's this little creepy little smile that William gets when he talks about that I was like, oh no.
No, he definitely goes full psycho during their conversation, but then laughs it off like, "Oh, I've had too much to drink," and goes to
Yep.
bed. And you're just like, "Okay." But at this point, Tom's been drinking for hours probably, so, you know, I think you could probably laugh that off too. But
But
then the problem is that the ghosts, or rather William,
yeah.
tells him, "Hey, you know what? There's no ghost in this hotel. I know that to be true."
Mm,
Or there's no ugly Hortense. Maybe there was once, but there's not anymore. But he
yeah,
also says there's no killer clown, which is interesting.
yeah, yeah.
Um, and then he kind of stumbles off to bed and says, "You should go into that crawl space and prove them all wrong." And
Right.
so that
But
gives,
before, let's just like talk
yeah,
about the fact that the whole conversation between them gives you a lot of story, a backstory about Tom and how he ended up on the island.
yeah, that his dad was an islander, his mom
Yep.
was not, and then he married an islander who
Yep.
is she's dead. And in
But
the
his son
first
was born
episode, there was
there.
also that whole conversation about if people who were born on the island go to the mainland, they die almost
I.
immediately.
Yep.
And I think we're gonna have to hear more about that too.
Yep.
Um,
But in any
yeah,
case, he does go down to the crawl space, and I can tell you that just would never happen. I think his first instinct was the correct one, but maybe he felt like he had enough liquid courage to get there. But um, he goes in, and the editing of this is so great, and the reveal is so great because you see just you hear William, and then Tom is also like, "Oh, I don't
he's
really
really
want to
freaked
do
out as
this."
soon as he hears the
Yep,
door. He's like,
yep,
"What?" He goes
yeah.
from kind of calm to immediately freaked out.
Yeah, yeah. And then of course the reveal. And I will tell you, my my partner, he was so mad at me. In fact, he turned to me and said, "Why did you make us watch
How
this?"
many times have you heard that
And I said,
from them?
"Okay, I did say that we should turn this off when I saw where it was going. I didn't think it would go here, but I knew it'd be something." Um, and and I was right. And it is really freaky. And you see the clown coming towards him, and it's definitely got like a not fully Pennywise, but esque, right?
Yeah.
That
I
it's
mean,
got that
in a
sort of
way, it's like almost laughable
yes, it's
because he's got like a
deliberately
huge frilly collar on. It's kind of
yeah,
a jokey
it's
killer
jokey.
clown.
It's an
It's not the
homage.
frightener or anything.
No,
You also have a shot of a old desiccated corpse wearing
body. Yep,
Tom's shirt. So
yep,
maybe Tom's dead and this is purgatory. We can start that, whole thing
yeah,
here. Sort of weird cut off island from the rest of the world.
yeah.
It sure can feel that way.
Yeah,
So
and then I mean, you have that sort of like cut where it's like you think he's gonna get attacked, he sees the body, and then it's like he wakes up.
yeah, so
And
in a way, like what's the big deal?
right.
You
And then,
know?
but then I mean, this is the bigger thing is
Oh
that they
yeah.
have all the footage from the cameras, and there's all this footage of him just by himself. And that's like, and then Wick is just merciless just about like, oh, you got the clown.
Yeah. So
And
Wick is there, Kurt the innkeeper is there, and Bashir the sheriff is there.
mhm,
And they're all like, yeah, there's nothing here. I'm trying to like it's hard to pin down what the mood is and what this is going to do for the dare. Like
right.
I'm kind of curious how that's going to shake out because we don't quite learn about that. But what they end up doing is they persuade Kurt to go into the captain's suite to to really like seal the deal and let the tourists come in because Tom
Mhm.
is now he's like recovering, but he's still pretty freaked out about his experience overnight. And so they have Kurt go into the room for 10 seconds and then open the door and he's like, I thought you said it was just gonna be 10 seconds. And it literally was from the audience perspective, it was less than 10 seconds because the
Right.
sheriff counted pretty quickly. And they're like, well, okay, let's do it again for 30. And he's like, can I have some food? They're like,
Right.
what do you need food for 30 seconds? And then they have a conversation. I'm not sure how close to 30 seconds it was, probably fairly close. The next time they open the door, Kurt is like beside himself.
Yep.
The room is trashed.
Yep.
And but then his reaction is like, okay, I did it. Great. Let's move on.
Right.
Kind of
And
interesting.
they see the wallpaper kind of peeling off, and the sheriff's like, "Oh, this looks like black mold. Maybe that's what caused all your hallucinations." But it gives Tom an out for what he what he knows happened.
Yeah, it's a great
And
opportunity for them to rationalize. And
yeah,
Kurt is like, look, I can just seal off this room and everything else will be fine. And so he's clearly so invested in this hotel that I don't think, even though he's had these horrible experiences too, clearly just being in that room for 40 seconds has put him at the edge of a
yeah.
mental breakdown, will probably end up being an axe murderer. That's my
Oh,
prediction.
you think?
I mean, yeah,
Do you think
like we
they're
said,
pulling the
everybody on
Shining
the
thing?
cast. I think he's going to get haunted into a The Shining sort of
Mm,
situation and try to kill somebody at least.
yeah,
And but they're gonna like so by the end of the episode, they agree that even Wick, I think, on some level, agrees that they'll open up the hotel as long as this suite is closed off
right.
and
Um,
off to the
but
races.
but I also think that this episode and the story that Tom shared with William also reveals a little bit of why he is triggered by Wick, aside from the fact that Wick is definitely challenging him and um like Wick is pushing a lot of buttons, but I think also that part of this is that um Loftus's dad is was an alcoholic that he fought with all the time that would constantly like undermine
Mm.
him and make him feel like he wasn't doing things and kind of goad him. And so I think they're very deliberately playing up that particular type of dynamic and relationship between him and Wick. And I think that's going to be like a stumbling block or something that he needs to get over. And he starts to get over it a little bit, but like he starts to be like, "Oh yeah," like because even Wick was like, "You got the killer clown," and it's like such a jerk about it. And it's like hard not to be. There's a little bit of rubbing it in his face. But he's very, very happy to have the out of the black mold with the like the sheriff thing.
But I think Wick doesn't want to just make Tom feel bad. He's really trying to persuade him that there's a problem.
Oh, I don't think he's doing it like I think he is doing it a little bit. I'm sure he didn't like being called a dumb hick.
Yeah.
And I think he does have a little bit of a like I think he does feel like Tom is an interloper who doesn't know what he's doing and doesn't care about the town. But I do think that he genuinely does not want people to die. And he does not have the tools in his toolbox to convey that in any way other than how he does. And but it ends up being like maybe Tom would listen to him a little bit more if he took a slightly less in your face approach. I don't know. But so much so that like, and I mean, this is just him kind of like Tom putting on a like a stiff upper lip and maybe just keeping himself a little bit in the dark to protect himself. But Patricia picks him up and he's just like, "Oh, it was all fine," and
Yeah.
like not nonchalant. She's like, "Oh, good."
It'll be interesting to see with I don't forget how many episodes there are in the show, something like 10.
Yeah,
If something horrifying happens to him every episode,
yeah.
like is his
What's gonna be
elasticity, is he still going to maintain that like flexibility of mental
right?
okayness, his resilience? It'll be interesting to see after,
What's gonna
like
happen to him? Right?
in
Yeah.
episode one, he got almost strangled to death. Episode two, killer clown. Like that's quite the acceleration. So we'll have to see what happens in episode three when he has to go swimming.
Yeah, and I have to like I really thought that Patricia was going to take more of a center stage in this episode because of the shining vibe, right?
Uh-huh. She'll have her own thing.
I yeah, but I thought there was because they have this whole thing where he talks to her on the phone because he's worried about his son, and she's just really funny and weird in the conversation as she always is. But I thought that there would be some point where she pops up to help him or something happens where he's interacting with her, and I was a little disappointed that that did not happen, but hopeful that she's featured. She's got to be featured in something, and probably like she keeps the whole boogeyman thing where she was threatened. Feels like that's an obvious thing that maybe will
Oh
come
yeah.
to
The
fruition.
fact that this island had a serial killer is kind of
Right,
insane, right?
right,
In it within the last generation. That's bananas.
right.
Also his son Evan, I
Yeah.
think is his name, is like a punk who's always out smoking weed with his friends and smoking weed on his back porch when his dad comes home in this episode. Clearly, there's going to be, and I think had skipped out on Ruth, who Tom had gone to send him to stay with her
Oh,
while he
sorry.
was
Was
at
it
the
Ruth on
hotel.
the phone with him and not
Yeah, it
Patricia?
was his 82-year-old secretary. So
Sorry,
she
I
just
forgot.
like she goes to find him. She calls him a few times, and then I think she forgets that she was on the phone. So
Yeah.
he hangs up. But that's also after he
Well,
realizes
obviously,
his curtains have been
I
opened
forgot
again.
it was Ruth and not Patricia because I guess I just really wanted Patricia in this episode.
She
So
basically just gives him a ride to the hotel,
that's it,
tells
and picks
him,
them
"I
up.
really hate this place. It gives me the creeps." And then she picks him up the next day. I mean, she does a lot for him.
She does.
That kind of though is the first two episodes. It's a really good couple to begin, and there's several more to go, and so I think we're going to talk about more of them. Is that your impression, HA?
Oh yeah, I
Oh
think
yeah.
definitely. Hmm.
So I hope that you will come back and enjoy them with us the next time on Reanimated when we continue to talk about Widow's Bay. What a delight.
Indeed. And thanks so much for listening. Until next time, bye bye.
Bye bye.